Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I'm AJ Conrad here, as always, with my intrepid co-host, Stuart. Hello, Stuart.
Hey, good morning. What's up?
Good morning. This is episode 165, and we'll be at 200 before you know it. And we are going to be doing reviews of Season 7, Episodes 5 and 6 of The Walking Dead. But before we hop into that, we're going to talk about a few news items, and there's a lot of news related to Fear the Walking Dead out there, more specifically their ad campaign introducing their new cast, and very excited to see a few new faces there, but specifically Morgan and your favorite, Mr. Garrett Dillahunt, who seems very excited to be on the show.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting little campaign. And they're going to actually have a full-length preview trailer tonight, I think, probably around the time when the regular Walking Dead airs. Because it's a Sunday when we're recording this. And I thought that this was a very interesting approach by the show to introduce who's on the show this year, this season. Since by the end of last season, we weren't really sure if Strand and Alicia were even alive. They're certainly not shown post-flood and capsize. Only Maddie is. And so it's interesting that we get to see, Alicia, Maddie, Luciana, who disappeared halfway through last season. Nick and Strand show up in these little clips, and then the new people, Jenna Elfman, Althea, who's played by Maggie Grace, Garrett Dillahunt, whose name I don't think we know yet, and Morgan, which leaves a few missing faces.
I have a feeling we may see a couple of these people pop up, but there's definitely no Daniel Salazar, Walker, but, is Walker dead?
No, they just remember they were sniping at the bridge.
Oh, that's right. And then
they got up and walked away like, oh, okay, well, they might all be dead, but who cares? We're going to walk away.
Yep. And then, but I have a feeling we'll maybe see them pop up again, hopefully, because I do like Walker as a character. So, in any case, it's an interesting ad campaign. They've been getting a lot of play over it, but they've also been doing a lot to play up the crossover between Morgan going over into Fear the Walking Dead, and you found a pretty funny tweet about that, which was, to kind of like talking about Infinity War being the best crossover ever, and the Walking Dead fans putting up the photo of Morgan and Nick from Fear the Walking Dead. So I'm curious to see how they incorporate him into the show and how this works. There's definitely differences in the two worlds. And now this actually, the timing of this makes it interesting because it hasn't entirely been clear about the time frame of both of these shows. And
well, look at this photo. This is Morgan around time of Terminus.
Right. So that's the question. What are they going to do with this? So I'm curious to see how all that unfolds. As I mentioned in our last episode, The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead have some theater events for the season finale of Walking Dead, and then it's immediately going to launch into the season premiere of Fear the Walking Dead. I don't know if as I mentioned, I don't think I'm going to go see that. Maybe I'll change my mind, but that's kind of an interesting campaign to get people excited about it. And I don't know, do you, even just with this particular ad campaign, it feels like there's more production or more money behind For the Walking Dead. And definitely for the cast members, that to me says that they have a lot more of a budget than they have had in previous seasons.
Maybe we'll see some scenes of remember in the season 1 I was griping that the riot police scenes usually had like 3 cops in them.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they've done like giant hordes of zombies now, and the camper line of defense scene had probably 40 actors in it. So I think that their budget probably has been going up every season, even though their numbers as far as audience haven't been crazy.
Well, maybe they're putting some more money in and see what happens. But I was also thinking about this related to what we were talking about last week with the the big kind of reinforced tank car thing that we saw, because that also, depending on what they do with that is to me indicative that they have a little bit more of a budget, because they're probably going to be doing some stunts and big set pieces and things.
Yeah, those are expensive vehicles. I don't know if you can just rent one in Hollywood, but They're like 400, 500 grand, I think, to buy.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll keep everybody posted. I'm sure we'll have some reviews coming up as the season unfolds. And on the lighter side of things, I have not actually seen the Walking Dead special. Have you?
But Walking
Of
Dead special.
of Robot Chicken.
Oh no, no, I haven't.
But in any case, they have released the Blu-ray slash DVD, and it has special features. And then even the clip that you found has a scene that they had cut out of even, I think, of that, which is actually pretty funny and harkens back to the days of Herschel. And I do think Robot Chicken does a fantastic job at these parodies. So that was kind of a funny little clip.
Yeah, they're usually good for a laugh, and I'd be curious to see what the other sketches they have or were that they put together.
Right. So I will be checking that out. Next up is the release. So I had seen this, and I had actually thought that this looked so terrible that I didn't even want to subject you to it. But basically, it's a YA post-Civil War zombie world. And it's a YA novel. I don't even know what to say about this. It looks to me, it looks terrible, but I will totally reserve my judgment if you think that this is something we should talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not much for reading YA. However, what's crazy to me is that they made this like fairly expensive looking video trailer for a book.
Yeah.
Books that I read don't have video trailers.
No, and I agree. That's unusual, but it still looks pretty rough. My guess is that perhaps the book is so bad that they need to do this to gain sales, but there has to be some money behind it for them to have done this, which is strange. It also makes me wonder if this has already been picked up as an option for like either a series or a movie or something like that, because it feels very strange to have a trailer related to a book like this, let alone a YA novel. And I'm going to let you talk about the next piece, but I have some commentary.
So there's there's a trailer for a video game called, oh god, what is it called? Overkill's The Walking Dead. And the trailer is called Aiden trailer, which Aiden, I guess, is one of the characters or maybe the main character. It's a survival first-person shooter video game. And the trailer is extremely well produced. They use motion capture. It's set in Washington D.C. and shows like pre and post zombie apocalypse. He has a baseball bat that's, anytime anybody's wielding a baseball bat that's been modified, you start thinking about Lucille. So that's kind of interesting. And he clearly seems to be having more fun in the apocalypse than he was having beforehand. If you
right.
It's kind of interesting. But yeah, there's no gameplay, so I have no idea if this game is actually going to be good. It just looked like most of the Walking Dead video games that I've seen have been mobile games that don't look like they're that much fun because I don't particularly enjoy mobile games. So this looked like it had a budget, and it's a genre that I probably could sink my teeth into a little easier.
I agree, and I think that it also looks amazing. And in terms of just like the uncanny valley, we're almost past it. It doesn't feel. It looks almost like live action.
Mm-hmm. It's very close.
Very close. I mean, it's still a little bit of it, and some of the cloth and things like textures and things like that. I mean, you can if you weren't thinking about it and just kind of happened across this, you might not immediately notice for a second. So, and that's to me high praise. It looks incredible. So, I don't know. I would consider playing this one.
Well, remember that's not gameplay. It's not going to look anything like that.
No, I know. This is just their trailer, but still. The fact that they're putting that much money into a trailer is kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure it's licensed. It's got the blessing of the Kirkman, as it were. So we'll see what comes of it. I don't know when we can expect it. They had this June, I think, or May is when E3 usually is, and then hopefully we'll get to see some gameplay and get a better idea of what we'll be looking at.
Is it your experience that when a trailer looks like this, and obviously they've taken a ton of care in building the story, because they have, this almost looks like a movie trailer, is it been your experience that the gameplay approaches this, or is it just a much more stop down version?
It depends on a myriad of factors, but I'm usually suspicious of a video like this that doesn't have gameplay anywhere near it.
Okay, yeah. Does it mean that they're developing it, or they just don't want to unveil it yet?
There could be plenty of reasons why they're not showing it. I think they're definitely developing it. They're using completely different engines for this video, this trailer versus what the game's going to be on. I have a retail consumer's healthy skepticism of flashy packaging,
Nice.
and this is definitely flashy packaging, but it looks awesome. But I think I've been burned too many times by other products that looked amazing, but then had a really bad story. Like they didn't get the right writer, or there's any number. Unfortunately, with video games, there's so many ways that they can fail. But when they're good, they're great.
All right. Well, we will keep an eye on that and see what it looks like a little bit later on once they show us more. And with that, I think we're ready to jump into our review. So this is The Walking Dead Season 7, Episodes 5 and 6. Episode 5 is entitled Go Getters, and directed by Darnell Martin, written by Channing Powell, correct? Or vice versa? Yes.
Yeah, one of those.
One of those. So this is, immediately we find out what has happened to Maggie, which everybody suspected, which is Maggie's at Hilltop. And this is not an action-packed episode. This is basically just pushing along the storyline, a little bit about what some of the characters are dealing with in the aftermath of what happened with Alexandria and the Saviors. So mainly this focuses on Sasha and Maggie and their interaction with the Hilltoppers. And then there's a little bit of Carl and Enid. It's an interesting thing because they have medical care at Hilltop. For those of you, because it was a long time ago, that don't remember, the Hilltoppers had made a deal with Alexandria, which is why they came there. And Gregory is the person in charge of everything there. And he's kind of advised by Jesus, the little parkour jumping man.
Sure. That's one way to describe Jesus.
I don't know. Like, he's... So there's a lot going on here. I mean, one of the biggest things is that Glenn is dead, so there's a lot of Maggie mourning Glenn and Sasha mourning Abraham, and both of them mourning both of the, like this is a pretty big deal. But also them entering into this community that, for some of the people in the community are telling them to stay, but then George really wants them out, or sorry, Gregory wants them out. And
Hilltop is a weird community, the way that they've built it up in the story.
Yeah.
I mean, at any point you can only name like 3 Hilltoppers.
Yep.
They never
you don't see a lot of them.
No.
And the odd thing to me about Hilltop is that Gregory's rule of it seems so strange. This is something that I am very skeptical about, is in that there are even in Jesus, but it seems like there are other stronger, more like intelligent and political people there, even amongst the few that we see. And I just don't know. I don't know that they would have dealt with Gregory. I mean, other than to just be like, oh, I guess he gets the job done. Basically, he just seems very weak, and I also don't think he could have negotiated at all with the Saviors. So that seems weird to me that they would even be allowed to exist as they currently do. So I find that is strange to me.
Hilltop would definitely have benefited from an episode like The Sanctuary got in a couple, 2 or 3 episodes ago, when we get to follow Joe Hilltopper around for a day and see how Gregory interacts with his people.
And maybe how he got there. I don't know.
Yeah. We get a very, very light description of like the fact that he was already in charge when Jesus arrived at the hilltop, and he thought it was for a reason, but it probably wasn't. It's just
he was there.
He's just kind of always been in charge. I wonder if he worked there before. I don't remember if that was ever laid out like at the museum. But yeah, he's an ineffective leader. We don't see him do anything useful.
Yeah, and he does it, but Bossy in a way he constantly talks about how he is there to help the community. And he, after the doctor has told Maggie that she basically needs to stay there for the duration of her pregnancy, Gregory then comes out and says no, that they need to leave. He can't get anybody's names right at all. He seems very confused about the fact that Sasha is from Alexandria. Like, there's a lot of very confusing things that also make me question whether he is mentally all there. He calls Maggie Marsha a lot. He constantly refers to Rick as Rich. There's a lot of weird things with him. And I guess I just don't see this person being a leader of a community even for a little while, mainly because he is cowardly and just seems to have his own self-interest in mind. But as you said, like, it might have been helpful to have a little bit of a background, and maybe there's more than we are aware of and are seeing. But we see a little bit of how Hilltop works, and this is some of my skepticism. Gregory agrees to let Maggie and Sasha stay for the night. And then there's this like crazy thing that happens, which is that somebody sets this car up in their lot, opens the gates, and puts on this music. It's a pretty elaborate, attraction for the walkers. Like, this car is reinforced in a way, and that clearly took a ton of time so that nobody could get into it to stop the music in such a way that I also doubt that they would have spent this much time doing this, and wasted this many materials.
This is the MO for the way the showrunners like to present the saviors, that they're willing to do these enormous operations to nail down Alexandria. And then this is like 100 hours of welding or something insane, and all those resources. Like they
and material,
somebody has made that middle finger emblem to put on the back of the whatever that is. It like a Chevelle kind of car?
Gremlin maybe. I don't know.
Could be a Gremlin, but yeah. So I agree. An unrealistic amount of effort has been put into this to just make this lesson moment when they could clearly just show up the way they do the next day and have everybody terrified.
Well, and I just don't think that there's been any. I mean, they're not aware of the deal that Alexandria and Hilltoppers made, or at least not that we're aware of at this point. I think that they're maybe part of the reason for this overkill is because Alexandria did rise up, and they're trying to make sure that all their communities that they deal with are safely passive and submissive to them. But this still seems kind of crazy, since they don't even think that the Hilltoppers could defend themselves. And they seem surprised because, Sasha and Maggie and Jesus take care of business. Their idea was that they were going to come in and save them and show them that they needed their protection. And it just seems like they don't really get the Hilltopper community either. And why would they even need to do that if they thought they were that passive? So I don't know. That felt kind of odd.
It's a strange way to make a very obvious message. One other weird thing is during this attack, they actually, in the background, you never actually see a shot of it, but they hang two of the two guys who were probably watching the gate. Like they kill two members of the community.
Oh, I guess I didn't see that. I missed it.
Unless they're able to save these two guys, I think that they're killed and turned even. And I'm like, that doesn't sound. And this is another thing that we see in the next episode also, where saviors are murdering people, and that really seems to fly in the face of Negan's philosophy anyway, which is like, kill one person if you have to, and threaten the rest of them, and they'll fall in line. And yet here we see people getting killed, and as you said, like, if they don't know that Hilltop is colluding with Alexandria, they have absolutely no reason to kill anybody, and that's only going to hurt their business model.
Right, and even when we see the interaction between Gregory and the Saviors and Negan's sort of representative that comes in, he's so passive. There's not even one little smidgen of rebellion from him. So much so that he was willing to give up Maggie and Sasha to them, and only by happenstance, which is that Jesus stashed them in the wrong closet, or the wrong closet, according to Gregory, that, you know, he was more than willing to give them up, and unfortunately instead loses his nice supply of scotch. But I just don't see them sort of coming in and being this heavy-handed. Yes, I see them coming in and taking stuff and doing the stuff that they normally do, but it doesn't feel like they really have a reason to do that with the Hilltoppers at this point, unless we're missing something. So, I don't know. It just seems a little odd. And I mean, I guess we do, just because of the actions of Gregory, and we see he's being forced to kneel to the saviors, which again doesn't seem out of the ordinary for Gregory at all. None of this is new information, so it's kind of odd that all of these circumstances then lead Jesus to be like, "Oh, Maggie and Sasha are going to stay here, and you're not going to say anything about it," and he kind of blackmails him a little bit. But it's weird to me that all these kinds of things wouldn't have happened before, that this challenge to Gregory's authority wouldn't happen before.
All that being said, pretty cool action scene.
True. And I do enjoy the Sasha Maggie teamwork with Parkour Man Jesus.
Yeah. And there are two other Hilltoppers who get to say, like, "We're on it," when she's like, "Close the gates," but we don't see them close the gates, and that's the end of their
That's all they say. It's really funny.
Yeah. And so they wrap it up with really ill-advised, like, Maggie obviously climbing through the roof of her hut and must be jumping down to the ground and running to the tractor at some point. We don't get to see any of that, but they're still making Lauren Cohan look pretty rough, like pale, greasy hair. Yep. They're making an attractive lady look pretty ugly, which is, I guess, good makeup.
Yeah, and they also, I mean, the stuff that the doctor has told her is that, I mean, the stuff that's going on with her, she really shouldn't be moving around at all.
Certainly not jumping through ceilings and off of roofs, right?
Nope.
But they take care of business, and then we get a pretty cool scene, honestly. The scene between Xander Berkeley and Simon, who is played by Stephen Ogg, is awesome. These two actors are both... each of them has like similar gravitas on screen. And even though Xander Berkeley is playing Gregory is just like, you know, licking Simon's boot heels, they're still just so good. They're so much fun to watch, the two of them, in the scene where they're negotiating. And so I really, really enjoyed this visit from the Saviors.
Oh, no, I thought that the acting was phenomenal. It's just more, a little bit of sloppiness in terms of storytelling. That's all. And then, you know, also in tandem with some of these scenes, we also have a little bit of Carl and Enid. You know, Enid wants to go to Hilltop to make sure Maggie's okay.
I was so lost during the scene when they're talking on the road at first, and they're talking about something happening in an armory. I'm like, did you see what happened? I had to look to remember. I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? This happened a season before. A
season ago.
We've watched it twice, you and I have no recollection of what they are talking about.
So basically, he locked her up so that she couldn't take part in the stuff.
I remember that he locked her in the closet. I do recall. However, what is the other thing that they're talking about? Did you look at it? Do you remember they're going
they're talking about when Glenn and Abraham were killed, whether Carl saw it or not.
Oh.
And Carl's saying that he watched it because he knew he needed to remember it. And then I think that was supposed to give him the motivation to go after Negan, which is what he's actually doing.
Okay. That was not clear.
Enid thought initially that he was coming after her and making sure she was okay, but really it's because he wants to find Negan. And then there's a very odd and sort of interesting scene where they somehow find a bag of roller skates, which I think is unlikely. and also, I should point out that roller skating on a road with leaves and stuff like that, impossible.
And zombies.
You're going to fall. You're going to spill. Like, I don't know that it's a good time to be learning how to roller skate, but I guess this is the equivalent of the happy shopping scene in 28 Days Later. that's kind of what it was, I guess, to show some bonding between them.
They have a kiss. I thought it was. These were good. I thought this was
No, they were cute,
useful.
but it was a little strange. And then they do make it to Hilltop, and Carl's motivations do become clear because he's trying to figure out where to find Negan. And then Enid also has a little bit more going on, and her whole obsession with the balloons now makes sense because Maggie finds her by what she thinks is Glenn's grave. It's actually Abraham's grave, and she's done up the balloons like Glenn had done. And so that's like an interesting little reunion, and also we hear just via Maggie's discussion with her about how she's trying to remember Glenn and move on, and mourn. And they are now their own little family. Like we see a lot of bonding between Maggie and Enid and Sasha.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Though Sasha also has her own motivation. She's going to try to find Negan. Basically, everybody's going to try to find Negan. He's got a lot of Arya Starks coming his way, for vengeance. It's interesting to see these little units formed. And then, of course, Parkour Jesus hops onto the truck that has the whiskey conveniently open, and Carl happens to be in there. So, and that's sort of like where that episode ends. Oh, I guess we should also mention that Maggie is all badass to Gregory and is basically like, yeah, we're staying, and insists that she's going to be called Maggie Ree, which is, Glenn's last name.
Well, and hers, they did marry. Didn't they marry? Or did they not marry? I don't remember.
I don't know. I think they did, but but I don't know that we've ever heard her say it.
This episode, big picture wise, does establish the fact that she's going to become the new leader, if not the new leader for the entire, good guy, quote unquote, good guy survivor effort, which is kind of what we start to see more in season 8. So it's pretty important point, especially since she's feeling like garbage and she's really leaning in, as a single mom in the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm. And so she's got some grit going on, Maggie Ree. And, there's... So I thought that it was an interesting episode in showing some of these things and especially her character development. But then when we hop into the next episode, we see none of this. So it's a complete departure.
Yeah. Well, that's been the last few, right? We just jumped from the Sanctuary or Alexandria to the Sanctuary to Hilltop and now out to Riverside, is it?
Yeah, Oceanside.
Oceanside.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I don't know if you felt this when watching it the first time. I did, and I felt it a little bit again, but it was definitely... So the next episode is called Swear, and it's written by David Leslie Johnson, directed by Michael E. Satrazemis. And this is a Tara-focused episode. And I had, when I first watched this season, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about Tara. Not that I forgot about her, like I just didn't. I was like, I just figured something must have happened with the actor, and so
she had a baby.
Yeah, she had a baby, so they needed some time for her to be off the show. So the whole premise of getting her out of there was that she and Heath were out scavenging and looking for things.
Now Heath, I definitely completely forgot about until I rewatched this episode.
Yes.
And I was like, holy crap, we never found Heath again.
Right.
And we'll get to the end and talk about it.
Right. And so it's almost, it was a little bit like I had to, when I first watched the season, I actually had to go back and like, oh wait, what happened? Why did Tara go again? And what was the reason? But in any case, like she and Heath are in a scavenging mission. They have some fraught words about teamwork versus every man for him or herself. And they have like a pretty rough first adventure together. They basically come across this bridge that's been barricaded off with these sort of almost like a construction site. And it's a
pretty cool idea for a zombie survival shelter, I guess. Like barricade both ends of the bridge, and then see what you can do about fishing off the. I mean, that makes sense. I don't know why this doesn't really become clear how it failed, other than by violent means. This is also all being revealed through flashbacks. We don't get this in one big chunk.
No.
Like, we don't really see the Heath's her getting kicked off the bridge until the very end of the episode. So it's interspersed with scenes from the new people that she's coming into contact with.
Right. I mean, I think just from a like tactical point of view, especially with the really big hordes of zombies, being out in the open like that, having other maybe non-savory people like the saviors or whatever see you out there, like it's a little too open. That's not a good idea. And then if you have a really big zombie pack or walker pack, they could overrun you, and maybe that's what happened here. But what they come across is basically a totally abandoned little enclave, like tents and cars and just things strewn all over the place. There's also these dump trucks at the end of the bridge with a lot of sand. I do think that Tara would be more careful, but she is not. And Heath realizes at the last minute that it's like a zombie sand trap, although it was a pretty cool idea to have them all buried in the sand. So
sand
that
was
kind
super CGI the way it
Yeah, it was, but the
down.
idea itself was kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, and they got to do desiccated zombies. I know Nicotero always wants to do like a new kind of zombie. By the way, did you see the Totally Naked Zombie last week?
I did.
Wow, what an impact,
Yeah.
right? I'm glad that there was a whole article.
Glad
about
we
that.
waited so long to see that.
But he always wants to do a new kind of zombie, and so this time he got to do like desiccated zombies where their eyes have disappeared and there's just like strings inside their heads. That's the cool side. The bad side of this is it means more animatronic zombie heads.
Yeah, there was a lot of them too, which it was like, ooh. So, they get overrun, and then it's very quick to find, like, we don't know what has happened at this point. We do see Heath, what it looks like is abandoning Tara and doing exactly what he had said, which is every man for himself. And then it's sort of like a blackout for the credits and opens up with these girls, like a teenager and a younger girl on the beach scavenging, and they find Tara washed up. The younger person is like, oh, we got to kill her anyway, even though she's not a walker. Tara is saved by the older teenager.
Cindy. Yeah, Rachel, the girl, is not a nice person.
No, she's a little sociopath. But you figure this out later on. I mean, they basically are talking about those are the rules and this and that, so you can kind of assume that this is what's going on in their community and what their community has put in place in light of the Walker events. And Tara makes her way, like, she's left with food and some water, but she pretends to not be awake and then follows Cindy back to her little civilization. And this is the Oceanside community.
Put yourself in her shoes for a second. First of all, I don't know how people wash up on beaches and then are unconscious.
Right.
Like, she must have just been sleeping. Mm-hmm. You can't be unconscious and not have drowned, But
right.
So she wakes up and she's like, okay, now I've got some supplies. What's my first move? Do I follow this chick or do I just go try and find Heath? I guess, what would you have done?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, is that Tara and Heath, from their earlier conversation, they're out looking for stuff, and they've been communicating or like cooperating and communicating with Hilltop. So, and Tara always seems to be one of those people who wants to build bridges and, and not to be, I don't think she necessarily had evil in her heart, but maybe she wants to see if there's some advantage that they can gain, if there's like a community that they can work with. Or maybe she's just hoping that there might be more supplies or something she can barter or whatever. At this point, she and Heath had only found like cans of okra. They had not found anything of use. And also maybe the community has some knowledge of what's going on the coast, which is something that they were also interested in finding out about.
So you would have followed the woman with the...
Cautiously, I don't know that I would have followed her like straight into the camp, because even Tara knows that what happens like in Alexandria, like they are not going to take kindly to that without vetting somebody. So I thought that was a little odd. But basically, it is, I mean, it's a whole community of women. That's all she sees. And they immediately try to kill her. And I do like the evolution of Tara because she basically holds her own. She almost gets away. And, but they are a
Rachel
well-oiled.
catches her again.
I
Damn
know.
Rachel.
Rachel's so like evil. And then, she's in prison, but she's acting, saying the right things for the most part, and then they have to decide what to do with her. What I find odd about this whole thing when they are deciding what to do with her is why not share a little bit more information? But we'll get to that in a little bit. What did you think about their defenses?
Yeah, their community is weirdly unwalled. They just kind of rely on the fact that they have these bells to lure dead people away, and the fact that they kill anybody who they meet. But they have a whole bunch of guns, which is not explained because Natanya, the leader, also says that they left their last camp with only the clothes on their backs. So I'm not sure how they got so many weapons, but they have a shed full of guns, and they all seem to be okay with running around with them.
They have an arsenal. And it's interesting because, I mean, they've decided to have these rules because they were hurt. And all of their men were killed, which Natanya explains. But I guess, for me, at some point, like, if you have a completely closed community, you're eventually going to run out of people. And if it's all women, you're going to run out of people. Like, you can't just sort of kind of continue on without having some trust. But I also get where they're coming from as well, and we saw with the saviors in Alexandria what happened to everybody with letting anybody in, that it's a tough call.
Now, let's be honest. If Tanya or Rachel had just shot Tara, or if Rachel had just stabbed Tara on the beach, there's an argument to be made that Oceanside would be in a better place currently in the chronology of the show. Like, in
that's what I'm saying. Like, basically, well, okay. So I think the decision should be you get a choice to stay or to die, which I don't know. It's hard to get people to stay under duress like that, but really they can't have somebody going to an outside world and like talking about them. And they did make a mistake in letting Tara go. That ultimately was the wrong decision, I think. But I kind of feel like in order to keep your community healthy and defended, you do eventually need new blood in there, because you're going to lose people. They lost a lot of people. But it's hard to I also get that it's hard to know who you can trust. But like, I don't think that ultimately they weren't going to let Tara go. They were going to kill her, but Cindy was the one who orchestrated her escape. And that was, yeah, they're definitely not in a good spot because of that decision. So
Cindy must be kicking herself too. But yeah, that's looking too far in the future. The point of this episode is to exact a solemn oath from Tara that. But this is the thing is, we know that Tara does not have all the facts. She does not know that Denise is dead. She does not know that Glenn or Abraham are dead. She does not know about Negan. She is not in a position to be making oaths.
Well, and then the other piece of this is that I don't understand. Okay, so the whole reason why the community is hiding, they don't give Tara all the information. They basically said they ran to another group, had a bad time, and went and hid here, and have decided to stay, basically be a closed community, because it's safer that way. But later we find out that it was actually the saviors that were the people that killed all their men and the boys, including Natanya's grandson and Cindy's little brother and her mother. And
this is the thing I was referring to in the last episode, where it seems very unlike the saviors to do this.
Yeah, but maybe there was something that we don't know and they wanted, who knows. But they know darn well who the group who had the outpost at the satellite station was. And why not share that with Tara and basically say, look, we've run into these guys before. This is why we're a close community. She's clearly not a savior. So, like, I find it's interesting that they wouldn't give her a heads up about that, or at least try to convince her to stay based upon that. and say, look, this is what happened. That's just an outpost. There's hundreds of them. And instead they're just going to kill her outright. So maybe it doesn't matter to them, but it feels strange to me that they wouldn't at least try to have that conversation.
Yeah, as always, right? Like that's where half the drama on this show comes
Yeah, I
from, is
guess.
people not being really honest with each other. So Tara is like full on jokester Tara. Like what she does is when she's in trouble, basically, and she basically endears herself to this group of Amazons. And there's a lot of good one-liners from Alana Masterson. She's like, it's pretty spot on. Her
Yeah.
tone is pretty funny, so there's some good jokes there. Including flipping off like an 11-year-old girl is one of the highlights of the episode for her.
I know.
But ultimately, she thinks she's going to find Heath with, I forget the names of the two women who are escorting her, but
Beatrice is one of them, and I don't remember the other one.
but things go sideways. And I'm glad that she sees it coming, because often, like that's like a TV trope, is that you don't see the inevitable betrayal happening, and she's like, oh wait, I think this is gonna happen, and then she does her little run for freedom.
Yep. I think she spotted it when Cindy wasn't allowed to go. So I think that tipped her off. And then she made a run for it. Good for you, Tara. She's doing her thing in this, and ultimately Cindy saves her again, and then threatens to kill her, but then doesn't kill her, and then makes her swear, like swear not to tell about their community. And then there's definitely an interesting moment when we finally see what happened on the bridge with Heath, and he didn't ultimately abandon her. He actually did he almost did exactly what Cindy does for Tara, which is to go on top of one of the cars and basically give her cover, and she gets sort of pushed over the bridge by one of the walkers. And there's this super weird moment where you think that he's a walker and it's just a woman with dreads, which was kind of it was like fake out. Well done, Mr. Nicotero. And the last we kind of, she thinks she sees like a getaway with Heath and like some dropped hotel card
With
on
the
the
initials
ground.
PPP on it, and this
Yep.
is a mystery to this day.
Yeah, we still don't know what happened to him. So,
And she
I
gets to
don't
walk
know.
home. Like, we also get to follow her home, and she's like picking up a bobblehead for Denise, and she's all happy, and like she's like smiling to herself, even though she's basically, during this intermediate point, she's by herself in the apocalypse, walking home. They've been
Yeah.
driving for 2 weeks to get where they were. You gotta wonder how long it took her to get back.
Well, right. And I mean, but, nothing like a pair of hot pink sunglasses to lift your spirits.
That's right. And by the time she gets back, goddamn Eugene can't keep it together at the gate.
Nope. Nope. Eugene's just like, man, no. But, we also, you and I, when we talked about her relationship with Denise before, it seemed very forced anyway. And it was not, I mean, they were not together very long. Not that that matters, but it's, it's it is a very sad thing, but, I found myself being like, okay, Denise who?
Right?
No, and I hate to say that, but it's similar to like, this was definitely an episode like I had to remind myself of what all the relationships were, and had to basically rewatch stuff oh yes, she was with Denise and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but she does, at least in this episode, does keep her promise, and she does not tell about Oceanside, even when she is asked about whether anything is out there.
Yeah, and she gets asked pretty point blank by Rosita and manages not to respond.
Yep.
Okay.
The interesting thing, though, to me, well, at least in the semblance of this episode, she didn't have to give up the Oceanside community, but now that she knows what happened with the Saviors, she does know that probably their only chance, or what seems to be the only chance, maybe in her head, is not to cooperate with them, but basically just run away. So in some ways, Rosita has the best idea to just get far away, and that's exactly what the Oceanside folks did. Whether they are far away or not is the question. But it's interesting that she doesn't even start to talk about that as a possibility. She could do that without giving up the community, but she doesn't do that, at least not here.
So Denise was in 9 episodes, I guess, before she died, which is actually enough, I think, to have to potentially have a love arc. But maybe what we're saying is then that it wasn't done well enough to convince us.
No, it wasn't. I mean, they were suddenly together. We didn't see a lot of them together. I mean, we saw a bit, but I don't feel like we saw enough to truly establish them as a couple that you would be like, oh, that would be terrible. Like Glenn and Maggie, obviously, we've seen them through multiple seasons, so I'm not saying that necessarily needs to be something like that. But they didn't. To me, they didn't even feel like they had chemistry. So that was a part of it too. And just even the way they got thrown together didn't really make sense to me. But, but anyway, but that's where we are. And next we will be reviewing episodes 7 and 8 of season 7 of The Walking Dead. Anything else to add, mister?
Those are going to be about 7 and 8. Sing Me a Song and Heart Still Beating. Oh, yeah. This is the Carl goes on Walkabout.
Yes.
Followed by Daryl makes a break for freedom.
Uh-huh. So,
okay, that's pretty exciting. Daryl, definitely getting Daryl out of the sanctuary is going to be a big move to like get our mojo back, I feel like, for the group, Definitely because we're all separated right now. And Rick is in spineless mode. It'll be, but I feel like there's not a lot of bright spots to go in this season. I think that this was a pretty grim season.
It was, but yeah, and it's interesting because we're seeing them all separated. So I wondered, I always wondered whether Rick Grimes and Daryl Dixon both had to take vacation or something like that. Or wanted to take vacation for these particular episodes because it's like they send Rick off at the beginning. We don't see him in the rest of that other episode, and nor did we see him in this one. So,
yeah, curious.
and we have not seen Daryl in either. And I wonder if both of them are like, you know what, we just want a couple of episodes, like just a break, okay?
So we just need to chill out. I mean, episode 8, the last one we're gonna do next time is the mid-season finale, also.
Yep.
So I think, and after that, they try to ramp up the revolution a little bit. But yeah, so that's where we're gonna be next time. So you should holler at us on Twitter, reanimatedpcast, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or on our show notes, reanimatedpodcast.com.
Awesome. So until next time, ciao.